Hi, welcome to PhDizzle. My name's Alice Chang, and today we are interviewing Dr. Shawn Hakim, who got his bachelor's in molecular and cell biology and physiology and neurobiology from the University of Connecticut, his master's in cell biology and biotech project management from Harvard University, and his PhD in cancer and molecular medicine from Virginia Commonwealth University. And he is currently a director of clinical development oncology at GSK. We know each other from grad school at VCU, but I actually don't know a lot about your past. And so it would be good to just hear about, how you decided to go into biology, what prompted you to, decide to go after like 15 majors in biology at UConn.
Definitely. Glad to talk about it. So my interest for biology, I think, started in high school. My favorite teacher in high school was my biology teacher, Miss Libby. It was very interesting, and again, even in middle school and earlier. But I think my whole interest was like really trying to understand living things and how we work, plants, human, and just to try to understand like the diseases and how we get disease, how to cure it, and sort of understanding of it more. So I was like very hungry actually I loved chemistry too, but I think my love was for biology. So when I went to UConn and my whole intention going to UConn, I was pre-med and I wanted to go to medical school. So I basically couldn't decide which biology major. So I've basically studied everything that UConn offered. So these are all the biology majors. So they're two different, it was mostly like neuroscience, and then you have the molecular biology. So at UConn, and then I did a psychology minor too. But again, trying to get like a broad knowledge, I feel like I just couldn't stick to one, and I just liked both the neuroscience and molecular biology. So I figured that was a good way to, and when you do double major, it's not that you have to do twice as much. You have to do probably half as much. So take a lot more courses and get 2 degrees. But one of the things that, I wanted to be in medical school. So I felt like the more I've learned in undergrad, it'll be better for me. But again, I applied to medical school, and almost at the last moment, I even got in, decided not to go. And I got this sort of summer fellowship, and which turned into a job at Yale, and I was doing that for a year, trying to really understand, hey, do I want to also do research in addition to being in med school? Because you could do that in some of the schools. You could do MDDR, like in distinction in research. So I was kind of going for that, but then I just worked with world-renowned scientists there, and I was working at the Yale neuroscience department. And my PI at that time had collaboration with like Nobel Prize winner Kandel and Paul Greenberg. So it's like seeing all these people around me, I was like, oh man, I think it's amazing. And just the research that I was doing in learning and memory, it was also very interesting. So it hit all the right spots, and I just felt like, okay, maybe this is where my passion is. I've done shadowing and some internship in hospitals. So I love that too, but I was like, research is where I want to be. So basically I love that so much. And then after that, for a year and a little bit, I went to Harvard and got into this program. And I was doing, again, research with famous person, Joan Brugge, who was like the head of Harvard cell biology at that time. And she was very inspiring. I think at that time, I just wanted to find what exactly I like, because I went from neuroscience to that cancer research. So then I developed more interest in cancer. So after that, I continued, I finished the degree at Harvard, and, I've actually worked in a biotech company.
Wait, hold on. So before you get there, okay. So you were at Harvard and you were getting your master's, you were talking about you maybe should have just applied to PhD, but you weren't sure. And initially you had wanted to go to med school. So at what point were you like, because I don't know, were you still considering med school at that point? Or were you like, at what point were you like, hey, I'm totally going to go into research?
maybe in the back of my mind, it wasn't completely over that I didn't want to go to med school at all. Maybe I was still sure. That's what I was kind of going around. But I knew that I wanted to do something different, like not, so every research advance, I was like, okay, maybe I should be getting more experience in this. I think I was going more toward research than med school. I think at that point when I finished, or at Harvard, I knew that's sort of not what I wanted to do. But while I was doing the degree, because of the degree I was getting in biotech project management, and I learned a lot about
Yeah, tell me
drug
about
development.
that.
And
Yeah, tell me about why you
so
decided to do that.
that just not of the courses and some of the practical projects that we had as part of the degree. And I was obviously doing research with Joan Brugge at that time, in breast cancer. It was sort of at that time I was like, yeah, maybe I want to develop at one point into industry. So I became very interested in industry because at Harvard and in Joan, she had multiple collaborators, and one of my collaborators with my project was Sanofi. So I had an exposure. So I think the part that they were able to sponsor our research and they could do a lot more because they have funding available. So I was kind of like, maybe at one point I wanted go into industry and sort of not have an academic lab, but have a lab in the industry and sort of do that. So that's why, pretty much right after that, I got picked up. Even before I finished the degree, I got recruited at a biotech company, at Biogenetic, doing Alzheimer's research. So,
oh, cool.
So it was kind of great, a great transition. Yeah.
Well, and you were talking about you had started off in neurology and then moved into cancer, but then you ended up doing Alzheimer's research. So was that like also completely new, or was there the tie into neurology?
No, that's like, so yeah, so that's part of neuroscience. But yeah, no, I think at that point, it's not that I didn't love neuroscience anymore. I just also like cancer, and I felt like there's so much to be done. I mean, we still do, and I was fascinated by cancer, and I just wanted to be involved. So that was so I loved both.
Yeah.
It was earlier in my career, I was like neuroscience, so I did, and then this company, again, it's the research part, right? So an Alzheimer was a black box and still is. Most of the, I mean, we have some drugs, but still we're finding out more, and there's a lot of research going on. So it was very interesting, and I kind of didn't intend to go into that, but the recruiter was very convincing. I interviewed at the company, and they were great. They're great scientists, great people. So I was like, this is probably a good transition, and also find out, like, do I really want to get into industry, or do I want to stay in academia? So that was like a 1-year venture, and right around that time, basically another opportunity opened up, and this is like a basic sort of PhD at Albany Medical College. But when I was in Albany, when I was doing my PhD work, and I just realized this was very basic, and it wasn't translational. It wasn't like, it wasn't the right fit, that program, and they had some funding problems. So I've actually left the program, and pretty much right around that time, Virginia Commonwealth, and there were a couple other PhD programs that were training PhD to be a clinical scientist. In a clinical science CTSA program. So it's a great sort of opportunity for me to transition. And I know I've spent a couple of years there, but I felt like, I'd rather not be in some place where I don't see myself transitioning well after the degree. And this is sort of, as you've talked to so many PhDs, and, like, you see a lot of people who are like kind of stuck after their PhD because they don't know what to do, and it's very competitive, right? Trying to get your own funding, joining a lab, or to be independent, or your independent lab, right? It's like these days almost impossible. So I kind of felt like I didn't want to be in that case. I wanted to have a clear transition, and I wanted to develop very unique skills that's going to be very valuable in the industry, and that can help me go into industry and do the translational clinical research that I felt like was more impactful. And it's a personal opinion. I'm not saying everything it's sort of connected, right? I mean, without the preclinical basic research, we wouldn't have clinical research. But I felt like this is where my passion was, like finally tying it back in my desire to go to med school with doing clinical research, right? So that was I think, was amazing. This program opened up. So yeah, that's how I came to VCU. Basically, I
Okay.
started the CTSA program.
So,
Um,
yeah, I want to hear a little bit more about that too. But just to recap, because
yeah,
this
sure.
doesn't happen very often, you were in industry making money, decided to leave industry to go to academia to get a PhD. Then you decided to quit your PhD and start a new PhD. Still, like not making a lot of money, but you thought it was worth it. So I mean, it's just a crazy story because a lot of people leave academia wanting to go to the other side, and it's like kind of funny because you kind of reversed. I know you're back in industry now, but at the time, were you always were you doing the PhD with the goal in mind that you wanted to go back into industry, or were you like, oh, I don't know, let me just do this and then see?
No, I always wanted to go, I think, in the industry. So, like,
Okay.
although, like, at that time, so yeah, before joining Albany Meds, another thing, like, I should mention that one other thing that I've seen in the industry. So, I had a master's, right? Going in the industry, they still value masters more than they value an academic lab or in
Mm,
academia. But I thought, just having that sort of terminal degree and your PhD gives you an edge even in the industry, right? So and also like for obvious reasons, right? I mean, yeah, you can learn at your job but just the ability to think differently, but having more analytical skills and sort of it's a dynamic degree, right? The PhD, and especially if it's in the right field and concentration, which is you develop transferable skills that you can apply in an industry job, then it's very useful. So going into Albany Med, it's a hospital, I sort of thought that I'm going to be able to get that and get that terminal degree necessary for you to move quickly in the position in the industry where you can make decisions. So that was another thing, right? So
mhm.
if I'm sort of working and in like I was a senior associate scientist, but at this level, eventually I would get promoted and get to a place. But I also wanted to be part of the decision making. I wanted to
Yeah.
do, drug development and strategy and things like that. So for that, it would take me a long time. Not that at that time, even at Biogen and other companies, and even now, people with even bachelor and masters have moved up to the pretty high level in the company. So it's possible, but I just felt like, first of all, I just always wanted to, you know, uh, like I loved school, I guess. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to learn more, and I just felt like it wasn't enough, and so that was the whole intention. So that's why, although at Biogen I was making money, I kind of went to, like, I could have continued, and people have continued, and they have got promoted, but I felt like at that time maybe I should go get my PhD and then come back. And
Yeah.
because I had the experience, it was easier. It would have been easier, right? In any way. So, and that was kind of the case. But yeah, but Albany Med, for the reasons that I've listed, that I kind of had to move, again, make me more marketable in the industry by doing, and exactly so. If I didn't do the degree at VCU, I wouldn't be able to get a job what I got here, or even something not even at this high level.
Mm,
So because clinical research is really for MDs, that's how it's been, unless you have, the level of experience that I have, and or a degree, and a degree, actually, not or, and a degree to support that. So that's what I was able to do.
okay. So tell
But yeah,
me about this program at
sure.
VCU and on
Yeah,
the translational
so
side.
the program at VCU is very unique. So again, it's a one of a kind program where they teach PhDs to how to become a clinical scientist, how to do clinical research, and not only just didactic courses in clinical research. They also do internship that I have to do. It's like a year-long internship, where you work in a clinical research unit. You work on something that could be basic to translational, but it could have the potential to move into clinic. And that was my goal with the project that I was working on. And I sort of left, but my PI still will probably pursue this and move this into a phase 1 clinical trial. So I was working in breast cancer. I don't know any other program where they offer that. So,
Yeah.
and that gave me sort of, it kind of tied in all my experience over the last 12 years at that point after I graduated. So it's sort of tied everything in, and it gave me sort of different components of different experiences necessary to do my job, which I'm doing right now as, running clinical trials.
Yeah. So awesome. I mean, first, congrats on the PhD. Huge accomplishment after, so kind of like trying different things and figuring out where to
Yeah.
go. Maybe, if I interview you again in like 15 years, you'll have an MD. We'll see. But so
No,
what,
maybe not. I'm like maybe MBA, but yeah, no, I
maybe
think I'm
MBA.
done with
Okay.
the.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so your role now, you are director of clinical trials, and so that's a huge leap. I mean, for those out there who don't know, like the progression of like career laddering in big pharma, these are huge companies. Typically, you're like associate, some sort of manager, some sort of senior manager, some sort of associate director. It's like many levels until you get to director. And so director level is a big deal, and that you were able to get a director level role as your first, I mean, not first ever job, but it's like your first job out of PhD, which is really unheard of. So tell me a little bit about how that happened.
So again, maybe with, like it got lost in all the experience that I had. But I think if you look at from when I started, so I've been doing research for a long time. So if you look at somebody who may have done undergrad and went to PhD, or let's say even took a couple years off and then went to PhD, it's quite different. So
Yep.
these experiences, and I've said every work where I've just like got the master's, or when I was working in the biotech, where I've gotten very involved. So there was very, the project that I ran, and I was very hands-on, and it wasn't like I was just working there. So all these experiences really counted, and I've tried to do other things at the same time too, right? So getting like the right network and talking to the right people and getting the right experience. So I've always, in the sense that I was entrepreneurial, and as well as I was like always wanted to expose myself to different experiences. Like I was always eager to learn. So at the end of the day, in terms of you are qualifying for a job, at the end of the day, can you do the job? Do you have the skill sets necessary to do the job? So during my whole tenure in research, I know in different fields, and like a lot of them I've done before my PhD, right? And also like at Albany Med, right? So those experiences, everything counts. Yeah, at that time, I probably would have had 2 PhDs, but so those experiences like adding up to, so I never, in a sense, like I don't want, I'm humble, but at the same time, I don't think I could be compared to another person who had just a PhD after undergrad, or
Right.
after a couple of years, because all these experiences, it counted. It made me very capable of doing what I'm doing now. And,
Right. Well, and
so,
part
yeah.
of it, you were part of the reason I think why it happened also is because you decided to go into this program, which was super specific, super tailored, gave you that experience as well,
Yep.
like super targeted, versus even if you had gone and done two PhDs in Albany, it probably wouldn't have, gotten you in the same place.
Exactly. And I know friends and colleagues who've been, in those programs with me, and they're not where I am. And another thing too, so I suggest that anybody listening to this also always do something practical, tangible, and high impactful. So one thing I did also after I finished, so that was sort of, you can say, my first job. It was at Massey Cancer Center. So I was working as a clinical science liaison, clinical research scientist. There I was really working with physicians and investigators who are working on sort of industry sponsored trial. So I was working with them from an academic center. So that was for a year, which gave me even more really practical experience. Right now, I was able to apply everything that I've learned, didactic course, and then internship, and then here, and also like when I picked during my internship, I was able to work with KOL and investigators at VCU who are pretty big deal, and they are,
Mhm.
they were doing a lot of work, and so I was very hands-on there too. And yeah, two of the famous people at VCU I worked with,
Yeah.
and 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 that's critical. That's critical, I think, for you to be working with the right individual, right mentors are going to be key for your success. So sometimes it's not the years you spend, sometimes it's not the degrees you have. I feel like it's always what experience do you have,
Mm.
and have you acquired the necessary experiences and knowledge for you to do the job. So I think I have convinced GSK, and I'm able to convince anybody else that obviously I can do the job and do the job well. And so far, the last 2 years that I've been very successful at GSK, and I can say, I'm getting, more experiences here, but like I'm also able to contribute,
Mhm.
significantly to the portfolio and to the program here.
So tell me
But
what
yeah,
so what is your job? So I know you're clinical development oncology. Oncology means cancer. What's
yeah.
clinical development? I know clinical trials, but like what do you actually do?
Okay, so we have, for each of the programs, you have a lot of clinical trials going on. So some are called registrational trials. So it's the initial trial that you show that your drug works in certain population and has certain efficacy, better than what's out there, right? So when that happens, you try different combination of trials. So these are sponsor any companies that actually develop the drug or developing the drug in more in most of the sense so you try different combination. So you have investigators in different sites, in academic sites, Cancer Institute. They are running the trial from their side, and you're the sponsor. So you design the trial, you develop a strategy, you design you write the protocol, the informed consent, and everything else that's necessary, right? So they're recruiting patients on their site from their practice or referral or however, and you're basically paying for the study, you're managing the study. So I am the contact person, I am the person who is the investigator on the sponsor side. So I am the clinical investigator lead for those trials. So that's what I do. So a lot of my daily job is to lead a clinical matrix team. I have functional leads that I work with to run this trial, manage this trial, data review, clinical analysis, talking to the KOL, talking to the investigators, address question, work with publication team to publish, present. So these sort of, and many other things. And one of the key things, obviously, submission, regulatory, working with regulatory colleagues for any sort of regulatory questions. So one of the trial that I work on for the drug, it's a registrational trial. So this is a trial that FDA and everybody has their eye on, because this is the trial that FDA approved the drug on. So,
Mhm.
we're finishing up that. And then I have another combination trial that I'm also leading. So yeah, so each of us, the clin dev directors, so we basically manage and do everything to do with, we're just a lead for, some of us do one or two or three, trials, depending on the workload. Yeah.
And so I guess conceivably you were on the other end of that when you were at VCU, right? So you like
Exactly,
know what's
exactly.
going on the ground. Okay.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
you
And that's a
probably, yeah.
great point. Yeah, that's a great point that we have actually recruited recently a couple people who were on the other side. They were the director for I think one of the Penn program here. So yeah, we've recruited somebody from that who was interacting with us, and now she's on this side. Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
nice. Yeah. Well, let me ask you, how does it feel to be on the other side?
The dark side.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'm just no. They always say that's the joke. No, it's great. It's great. I still enjoy the things that I've enjoyed in academia. I think one of the key things I have to say, the funding, right?
Mhm.
And I think you can ask anybody. I think the burden of getting funding, it's not there, right? It's not here. So that's great. I think, but other than that, I think we enjoy everything else that you would enjoy in an academic lab. I mean, coming from the sponsor side, obviously, is very different from if you have to respond, like if you have to answer to the sponsor. But you know, I like it. I think it's a great fit for me, and I just, this is sort of what I envision. I don't know, this was a dream, but it's coming true. So because at one point and at VCU too, I thought I'd take a position in a cancer center and then do being in the other side. And when I was working in Massey, I was like, that's great, you know, that I was enjoying the work. But yeah, doing this on, I think I have I think I have more control over things, I have to say. But I still get to enjoy what anybody would enjoy in academia. You know, control in the sense that, like in academia, if you're not funded, or if you are sort of, and I don't want to say you are, most of the time, if you're a good investigator, somebody will sponsor the study that you want to do, which is the ITT or ISS. But I just feel like that part coming from the academia, I think not like asking for funding every year or sort of thing. That's kind of great. But we still respond to investors. We still respond to all our stakeholders. So I don't want to say in terms of our responsibilities any less, but just that component of it, I feel like anybody coming from academia enjoys a lot. So you could freely do the research and really work and collaborate with your academic partners and investigators and sort of work. I think it's a business, but at the same time, at least at GSK, I think it's patients first. So we're always trying to use appropriate resources to deliver the best medicine for our patients. So that's our big thing here at GSK. And I think a lot of the companies are, because otherwise you need to be passionate about something. And I think in outside world, they always talk about money, and obviously in any business to sustain, you need to make, you need to have certain revenue, you need to make profit. But at the same time, I think your first goal should be delivering, at least in the oncology area, to deliver the best care for unmet medical needs and for cancer patients, all around the world. So I think that part is very rewarding for me personally, and I really enjoy that here. Yeah,
that's great. And can I just ask a personal question? Have you had people in your life affected by cancer? Like, is that part of the motivator?
Yeah, and that's true. And I feel like you can ask probably anybody. They either have somebody in the family, or we had several people. Like my uncle died from liver cancer, and I mean, we have multiple, like in our extended family too, like had cancer, and my wife's grandma died from breast cancer. So it's just, I mean, there's people that I know. Yeah, exactly. I want to list them, and I think that's the thing. That was one of the motivating factor for me to go to Harvard and continue in the field. That I just feel like we weren't doing enough, and I just, whatever contribution, my contribution was negligent, but I felt like even if at least I'm involved and I'm doing tiny microscopic amount of work that can do something, it'll be something in the big picture. And I think that's why I kind of got into clinical research too, because I feel like the impact is a lot more, and I get to see, right? So when I'm running these clinical trials, it's amazing when I see the data, like the positive results from this, and see patients, right, that benefiting from these drugs. That's great. So
that's amazing.
You get to enjoy.
That's inspiring me to want to go into clinical research. So you were saying that this was like your dream job, and now you're in your job, and so I mean, what's next for you? You mentioned getting an MBA, but how are you thinking about it? Like, you've worked so long to get here, and now you're like, okay, where do I go from here?
No, I was just like, so if I do get an MBA, it'll be executive MBA. So it would be for business need wherever I am and whenever I decide to get that. But that's almost like I'm not planning on it. I do want to develop my career in clinical development. I think this is a great fit for me, and I'm really finding, yeah, I think after all these different types of work that we just talked about, I think I finally found what I want to do. And at one point, I was also interested in med affairs too. So I think
Mhm.
that also very interesting to me. So medical affairs, clinical research, clinical development. So it's sort of where I think it's my interest is, and I sort of want to develop that and take on more leadership role in the future for people who are doing PhDs or pursuing career in like biomedical sciences, or sort of like in science in general. I think sort of having an idea of what you want to do and have alternatives, have backups, and also understand what skills you're going to require. Like if somebody were to hire you, you have to ask the question, why should they hire you? Then you need to develop those skills at some point. So, and that's fine. You don't have to, like, not everybody's going to have the opportunity to develop all the skills during PhD. So if certain jobs right after PhD, rather than doing a traditional postdoc, or don't always think outside of the box a little bit if you want to accelerate your career development. I think that's an important thing, and it always didn't work out the way I wanted to, but some of the experience that I went through sort of made me into who I am and where I am. So that's the main thing. Think outside of the box, develop all the skills, get all the experiences you could possibly get to do what you really want to do. And the number one thing is be passionate about what you do. So that's, I think a lot of people will tell you that, and I thought, oh, really?
Yeah.
But I think it's very important. If you love what you do, at the end, then nothing matters.
So, talking about loving what you do, what do you love to do outside of work?
I love sports, so I'm like always like whenever I'm in PA, so the weather's not always great, but like two babies and but yeah, no, my whole life I think I've enjoyed an outdoor stuff like hiking and camping. Although I haven't camped for a long time. Uh, I like the outdoorsy stuff. Even fishing at some point I enjoyed. Like I love deep sea fishing more than regular fishing, but enjoy. But
What about specific sports like volleyball?
yeah, and yeah, so I love volleyball, and we got the intramural championship at VCU. Right where I graduated, so that was really great. Yeah, no, and in undergrad too, I used to do intramural sports. So yeah, I think in sports, like I do it for fun, but I become very competitive.
No longer being in school, so having way less free time, having two kids, which also way less free time, but also limits your types of time and where you can go. And also getting through COVID for the past 2 years, and now we're kind of finally out of it. I feel like that the last 2 years for you have been, like major change.
Yeah.
And how like you're obviously doing well now, but how was that experience for you?
Yeah, I think it was quite hard, and for anybody else, like being sort of, I felt like stuck for like more than 2 years. It was very difficult, and honestly, like I onboarded remotely, and I just didn't know how it's going to work out, because I didn't even think some of it was possible remotely, but
Mm.
it ended up working really well, and I think obviously there's the pros and cons to it, but I think all of us, and obviously including myself, we dealt with it. Make sure that the important things are taken care of, and but again, it was. I'm not gonna say it was hard. Like I
Yeah,
think you can ask like I think maybe 95% or more people will
of
say like
course.
it was hard. So
Yeah.
but I think we went through it, and it's fine. And I do actually, I never thought I would say that I do enjoy remote work now,
Mm.
and I think I'm able to do everything I could possibly do in person remotely. So like sort of remote or hybrid work schedule is totally possible, and I think it's possible for many industries. So
Yeah,
And
I
because
love
like,
that.
you know, we have global trials, there's never going to be on site. You can never get everybody on site. It's impossible. So
Yeah.
for that sense, it works because there's always going to be it's going to be through Zoom or Teams. Like, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
just going to be there.
I think I remember you telling me that you also like traveling, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You know
So
me. Yeah. Sorry. It's a big part of me. And I used to do a lot of traveling and actually, yeah, I don't know how I forgot. I don't consider this as a hobby. I think as
it's
my
core to who you are.
other job that
Tell me
other
about the
job that
things that are
I don't
core
know
to
how I
you.
forgot about it. But other job that I don't do as much anymore, and none of us do, I guess.
Yeah.
None of us did during pandemic. But yeah, I love to travel. I've been to a lot of countries and places, and you know, on the highlight, it was like our my wife and I, we went to Bora Bora for our honeymoon. That was one of the highlights, and
Wow.
it's a great trip. And we have a couple of other things in our bucket list that we need to do, but it
Yeah.
comes back to just like with sports and other things, kids. So
Yeah.
I
Just
have
drop
to,
them
I
off
have
at the
to,
grandparents. Yeah.
yeah, or somewhere for, I don't know if it's possible for a week. I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody's going to take them for a week, but so for a little bit, but at some point we will go, and then maybe we'll go with our kids too. So
Yeah.
that's,
What's
and
the
we're
top
gonna
of your
have,
bucket list?
right now it's gonna be more exotic Maldives,
Yeah.
or yeah, again, it's not very kids friendly place. Water all around. Yeah, so that like Bali and Thailand, probably like one of those. But yeah, and then like we've always wanted to go to. That's a family dream vacation, Egypt. We wanted to
Really?
obviously see the pyramids, right? You gotta
Oh,
see
that's
the.
cool.
Yeah, I don't know. We found find it
But
to
like, is that a
as a
kids thing?
family, our whole extent, all the family. I
Oh,
think
okay.
we
Could
want to
maybe
go to.
because it's more like cultural to your families. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
cultural. But
Okay.
not only that, just like I don't know. I think I'm fascinated with pyramids, and a lot of people in our family we're like, we want to go see it. I don't
Are
know. It's
pyramids
just
also like core to who you are as a person? It's just
no,
another.
absolutely not. But I just like I think it's and there's like a lot of activities that we could do. Like they
Yeah.
have museums and like, you know, I don't know, camelback riding and like a
Yeah,
lot of other things.
that would be
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, like like desert, like ATV rides and things
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like
That's
you could
cool.
do it in a lot of different places. You don't have to go to Egypt, but also like culturally, you experience the culture. The pyramid is there. It's like something like, I don't know. We
Yeah.
talked about it. There's probably other places that we go to like nah.
Yeah. Well, you could
But
probably start with
it's
like
one of the
Disneyland and then
yeah,
work your way from
I've been to Disneyland, Disney World, but yeah, so with kids, that's like a number one vacation spot, right? So you kind
there.
of have to go. So
Yeah.
yeah, those will happen, definitely. The
Yeah.
Harry
Well,
Potter
hopefully
world.
soon. Yeah, Harry Potter. Yeah, it's all coming. PhDizzle.
Having fun with smart people who do cool things.